Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with me, Kevin Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. Joining me in today's leadership and coaching segment, she's a speaker and is a self-leadership coach for ambitious women. She created Self-Led, the empowerment program, which has helped women from all over the world live a fulfilled, happy, and successful life. Please welcome Dr. Willo Boniface. Dr. Willo, how are you doing?
Thank you, Kevin, for a nice introduction. I'm well, thank you.
Great. And thanks for joining us. To kick it off, let's just start with who are you and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go into some more in conversation.
Yes, beautiful. So I'm Willow. I'm from Australia, and so I'm a self-leadership coach, and I work with women. And I'm really about the woman behind the role, behind the title, behind the mother, behind the wife, any role that she plays in her life, and making sure that she is glowing. And that's one of the things that that we talk about as the end result, to have people feeling really fulfilled and happy and energized and confident in their lives to do what they are here to do. And so I think that this all came from me when I reflect on where my real passion and drive for this came from. There was one instance where there was an International Women's Day event, and there was a panel up there, and I was a scientist at the time, and there was this woman on the stage, and she was like the pin-up woman of science, and I was hanging on to her every word, thinking this woman has nailed it. She's got all the accolades, she's got all this going on in her science career, and she's smashing it. I'm like, I want to hear what she has to say. And one of the questions went to her, and it said, do you have any regrets? And she sat with it for a second, and you could have heard a pin drop in that auditorium. And she came back with, I regret not spending so much time with my children and raising my children, because now I don't have a relationship with them at this point as adults. And you could hear the collective heartbreak in that room. Wow. But it was so grateful to receive her vulnerability at that moment, because I think it has completely shaped how I see work. And as a very career-driven woman, I'm like, we need to get our priorities right, and we need to make sure that our jobs support our happy, fulfilled life. We want it all, and we can have it all. We don't have to do it all. It's a different story. But I think that's really where a big drive for me came from. And so I mean, I keep going, but
one of the first questions was, what was, one of those pivotal moments? But I'm like, that speaks to exactly that, right? And I think you started off with saying the roles in our lives, and I think that's so important around a leadership conversation, because very often you play the role as mother, or you play the role as wife, or the role as the executive. And yet we kind of go, oh, no, leadership is applicable in that job thing that I do. But it's not really, leadership is, the ability, as you rightfully point out, being able to lead self, and what that looks like, and what does that even mean, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think when you can grasp it and really think, well, I can apply my leadership skills to my life. How do I want to lead my life? Getting really intentional about who's getting the best of me. Right. And that comes back to your core values and your priorities. But when you get clarity there and you think, well, I do want these beautiful relationships, I want connection. It just means the time that you do spend is very intentional about connection. And so it doesn't mean that you can put the brake on your amazing career. It just means the time that you do spend is very deliberate, and you maximize that.
You mentioned that you were a scientist, so your journey and your background was medical bionics, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. So maybe you can touch on that. But then moving into self-leadership coach for ambitious women, I mean, and that journey in itself is quite remarkable. How did that journey happen for you, and what was that? How did that process come about?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting story, but as it goes, I was sort of picking what I wanted to do with my life, and I was very driven. I loved science, and so I inevitably chose this science career path. And the other option for me at that point was psychology, and I it's funny because you think about your choices now and you think, did I make the right choice there? Because if I did, I'm very much obviously circling back to being a coach now. It aligns with that psychology option. But anyway, I went with the science degree, and I ended up doing medical bionics, which is my PhD project, and my work after that was I was designing a brain implant that would respond to epileptic seizures. So it's like implantable devices, and it was a device that would run off the glucose in your blood. So it was completely implantable, and it was a fascinating project, and it certainly worked on the bench top, but it was going to be obviously a very long time to get that into people's heads and to being effective. And so, well, I got to the end of that process and I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to try something different. I had a bit of time in the corporate world and then doing some higher education sector policy and strategy work as well. But the whole time I did what I would call my linear career, I was always had my head and investing in self-development, personal development, professional development, anything I could get my hands on, which was actually my passion when I really think about it. And so it's been a beautiful full circle moment to then pursue this as a career now and absolute, really, really enjoying it, obviously.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I mean, just to touch on the self-led empowerment program. So you've created and designed this program, and the concept of glowing is something that you speak about, is central to the work and the mission. So could you elaborate on what it means to glow in context of leadership and how it contributes to personal fulfillment and success, especially for emerging leaders, for people stepping into that role?
Yes, beautiful question. I think when I talk about glowing, I feel like it's just a beautiful way to describe something that we all intuitively know, but tend to not be able to wrap language around sometimes. I certainly struggle with it, but it's that idea where you see a woman just in her element and she is confident and happy and focused and she has space for people. And that's where I think leadership comes in, because one of the beautiful, delicious byproducts of glowing and just like taking up space for yourself is this spaciousness that comes with it. And when you talk about spaciousness for a busy working woman, it's nearly laughable sometimes. But I'm like, no, the space comes. Like, it's like time slows down and you think, I can breathe here, like I can exhale. and that comes into play in every area of your life, that you feel like you've got time to be with your children, be with your partner, all the home things, but also when you show up to work. And this is a big reason why I love to work with emerging leaders, because if we can get them before they step into those leadership roles and they're glowing, know their beautiful worth, are confident in what they know and applying their knowledge at their workplace, they're already a beautiful influence. And so when they step into those further leadership positions, they've got that sorted. And if I can project into the future, and I guess that in relation to what we're seeing in some instances where women are getting to those leadership roles and we're all celebrating, and then there's a dropout rate, kind of like where it's unsustainable, that what's happening there. And people that often the reason is because they want to focus on their family a bit more. And I'm like, what if we just get this generation of women to glow? And so they have the space to then go, actually, I can do that. Like I can step into those roles. So for me, when I was pregnant with my first baby, I was in the corporate world at that point, and I was searching for a female role model that was a mother, that was a leader, and that was happy and healthy. And I mean, the corporate world is a beast in its own, but I struggled to find one. It's a male-dominated industry anyway, but finding those golden nuggets of role models was really challenging. And I'm like, if we can change that story, if we can actually get those women in there and they're happy and healthy and doing their thing and sustainably doing their thing, then we have other women coming up and they're like, well, if she can do it, so can I. And I think that's where the narrative can twist. And I think the beautiful piece, the vision is that these younger women will see these women occupying these leadership positions and absolutely thriving. And I think that's the goal.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love the fact that, when you speak about emerging leaders, to kind of empower them. So by the time they get there, that they have some kind of handle on what that's going to look like, right? And to really find a bit of balance. And sometimes leadership doesn't really have a balance, but it's the awareness of like, what can I really give energy to, and time and attention, and what can I sort of slack on today or this week, just to get on track. But it's very often most people just fall into that busyness, and they, every other area is like, no, it's my work, I have to get this done. And you're not going to be able to do it for much longer if you carry on at that pace, right? So, but what's interesting on some of the language you used, and I just want you to unpack it. I mean, for me, I think it's I was actually posting it yesterday online about holding space for people. I think it's my superpower. But don't you just want to unpack that, because I think it's such a beautiful concept to be able to hold space, but also mentioning taking up space. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the narrative of what we know for the last 100 years of our lives is women shouldn't be taking up space, right? Or we get the idea or the sentiment that, like, why are you trying to be all leadership now? And why are you trying to do all, like, why? And I know that a famous, well, I don't know if he's still a doctor, but his name is, I forget his name, but yeah, he, has a very strong opinion about who women are in the world, and he was online the other day speaking about this, and he kind of he has a fierce kind of approach about what women shouldn't be doing, based on the fact that it's creating an unequal society, and it's very interesting. But essentially, the fact of the matter is, what we now know, and we know it more now than ever before, that women are far more capable than we've given them permission to believe they are. And there's like even the Me Too movements, and equal pay that we've seen, that's been in the Hollywood and the news, and all of those sentiments are part of that narrative of going, actually, there's space for women that take up that space, and that's okay.
Yeah. And it's a real challenge to an old way of thinking. It really is, which has, and through no fault, I think it's just, there's been millennia of male leaders. And only in the last 100 years have we started to push and really take up our own space. And we're still on that march. But I think taking up space is one thing at the leadership table. But I think to do that, we need to take up space in our lives. And often as women, we give a lot, and we need to feel like we deserve, to even take time to move our body or something in the day. It's like everyone else's priorities come before us. And it's like the martyr mentality of just serving and giving. And when I say take up space, I mean receiving, and I mean feeling deserving of that, and also taking what we need, because that means, as much as society, and like there's so many things at play, right? Keeping us small, but we need to be okay and holding our own space. And when I say glowing as well, there's an element of that, which means like shoulders back, head high, like even thinking about posture in how we take up our space is so critical. And it's actually the energy that we're giving off. And I talk about leadership energetics, because it's like you can walk into a room and take up space there, and it doesn't need to be an overwhelming space. It just needs to be a confident space for you. And it doesn't need to, I say confidence, and it's different to every single person. My confidence is kind of loud and assertive, right? But like other women I work with, they've got just a kind confidence, and it's a bit more quiet, but it's still holding space. And we all get to have our own glow of whatever that looks like. And I think that when we then step into places where we are leading, holding space for other people is critical. Like I think coaches, and I know that you run your coaches leaders program, and excuse me if I've got the name wrong there, but that concept I was so excited about, because when we do this work and you hold space for other people, when I coach them, I then hear them coaching other people in their life, but not even coaching, but holding space, because leadership and holding space is actually about listening. And I think we can intellectually get our head around active listening, that we can, yes, hear the words. If you're a busy person and you've got a lot going on mentally, it's very difficult to be so present with that person. But if you've got a calm nervous system, if you've really done this work, and it doesn't take a lot of work, but just you have spaciousness in your own life and your own, and you can hold your own, then when you sit with someone and you're listening, you're actually allowing them to influence you. And I think that's the powerful piece. Like, this is Stephen Covey, right? Like, he talks about be influenced and allow them to influence you, allow them to feel heard. And then you have a greater influence as a leader when you speak, because they feel like they've influenced you and you've taken on board their thing. You get to choose if it's the right way to go or what feels good for you, and then influence in return. And I think that's just really powerful.
Well, as you're speaking through it now, I'm just kind of, what's occurring to me is, interestingly enough, when you're holding space for someone, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to solve the problem, right? You're just available for them to be bad or be sad or be angry or be whatever, and you're just going, okay, cool, I'm so sorry that you're here. What do you need? Like, and to be able to be presently there. I mean, you don't have to solve the world's problems, and you don't, it's not required, but the ability to hold the space for someone really does speak of your own personal presence, right? And second to that, and I think this is probably where the confidence and the presence conversation really lends itself so well, is holding space and having the ability to take up space also requires you to be responsible for the space that you take up. Right? Because so many people, and again, I'm making a generalization, but many times I've encountered where people take up space, but they're very reckless with their space taking, right? They're very reckless in how they speak and how they show up in that environment, and you kind of go, actually, you're just annoying, dude. You're not helping. You're not. This isn't fun for me. You're just annoying, And with a cognizance of, absolutely, hold the space, take up the space, but be responsible for that space.
Yes, I love that, and because I think we all have
self-leadership, and like, who are you in that environment, and how are you showing up for yourself, right? And how are you showing up for that environment? And if you're not responsible for the moment, the energy, and the language you're using, or the tone of voice you're speaking at me to, or to me at my English, to me at, invariably you might be sticking your foot in your mouth or creating a few enemies in the room while you're doing it, right? Just because you have a title, or because you have a thing, or whatever, or this is your project, you're still responsible for the space that you hold.
Yes, I love that. And I think that when I talk about leadership, I don't necessarily mean it as the title. I mean it as the energy. And I think some people can be leaders in their own, at any, we know that, right? Any level of an organization has leaders, and we even lead ourselves. We lead our family in a certain way. But I think when someone is, taking up big space and it's like a power over type energy. And I always bring it back to what is your intention with holding space? Because I think if your intention is to listen and to be influenced, the person who is, and this is kind of one-on-one as well, but we can talk about it in like a group setting. But if it's one-on-one, you want that person to feel heard, and you want that person to feel like when they go away, either way, they're going to leave the conversation, and your reputation exceeds you. It expands. And so if you have the intention of making that person feel heard and valued, then they're going to walk away feeling that, and they're going to speak kind things of you as they go along on their journey. And that's how your reputation and your brand builds. But if you have not listened well, and you haven't held the space beautifully, then they'll also be like, walk away and go, I really tried to communicate there, and I didn't feel heard, or I don't know if she was really listening there, and that's just as damaging as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, just to bring it back closer to you, you're a mother of 2 young children, and have a successful professional career. How do you navigate both personal and career spheres with grace the way you do? And how have you managed to strike a balance between family life and impactful work, empowering women through the self-led and program that you have, and other initiatives?
Yeah, so it's really simple, and it comes from my own crash and burn, right? Because we often need to rebuild ourselves and figure out what works for us. And I think my crash and burn moment was it was a moment in time. I found out I had to have a hysterectomy. I got made redundant by organizational restructure, and I had like extended family relationships unstable. And it's like the trifecta of uncertainty around finance, relationships, and health. And I was like, what is my life? The wheels were off. And I remember sitting at my desk trying to write an email, and I could not for the life of me write this email. Like it was a 1-sentence email to a friendly colleague. It wasn't something that I should be nervous about. And I just couldn't even, my head was doing like somewhere else. And I had to move that energy out of me. And I went and put my shoes on, and I drove to a staircase, and I ran up and down that staircase until I couldn't walk anymore. And I remember laying at the top, like puffed, and finally taking deep breaths and actually like resetting my body, I think, and getting that energy out. And I was like, I will never come back here. I will never come back to this place and feel this out of control. And I'm like, well, if moving my body like that did remove those big feelings, and I was already moving my body, but just I sort of did it. And a lot of busy, ambitious women do this, where we'll go like gym 3 times a week or whatever. And I was doing that, and the wheels fell off my life. And I'm like, this needs to be more nourishing. Like it needs to be something that I can do on my worst, most busy, time poor day. And I still feel like it's a mental relief for me to move my body. And so I decided that was going to be walking. And so when I help people to do this, one of the first things we implement is moving your body. And it's not I'm going to run 10 kilometers today. Yeah. And like, it's very challenging sometimes for ambitious women to like notch that back to go, okay, what am I going to do? It's going to be a stretch of the body. It's going to be a gentle walk or something like that. Listen to a podcast. I go for a swim in the ocean because I'm blessed to live close enough to do that. But that beautiful that connection between my big emotions and the movement of my body was like pivotal for me. And then we also bring in affirmations and gratitude and then a whole bunch of mindset work. So reframing what's happening in their lives. And if there's any victim mentality stuff happening, we really take responsibility for ourselves and then go, and try and have a more abundant view of the world. And I think that comes down to how we speak to ourselves and how we speak to others, how we speak about other people that aren't in the room. There's a whole integrity in language that I think calling people in on. I say because sometimes it doesn't feel nice to call someone out when they've said something poorly about someone else. But and in a coaching space, I call them in. I'm like, no, lead yourself differently. Like it's not helpful to be talking about other people like that. Take responsibility for what you can and let the rest go. And it's just these beautiful mindset shifts, and it just contributes to the glow, and it just keeps expanding. And it's a wild, wild ride. I'm sorry, I don't know if that answered your question, actually. I just went on a
I'm just thinking as you're speaking, I'm going, well, maybe I'm probably glowing myself, because just this morning, yesterday, I saw a YouTube video around someone wanting to wake up, at like 5:30 in the mornings to really see if it does make a huge, difference to their productivity and their mood and everything. So I was like, it's one of the things that I don't like getting up early. I've never have. And I was like, okay, well, I want to test the theory, right? And just this morning I went walking I was out of the house at like 6:15, just after 6. And and usually that's just not something I'm like. I'm up at around 7 and just going to walk, but also having a moment where I walk straight into the sunlight. And I know Dr. Andrew Huberman speaks about this a lot on YouTube, about that initial contact with sunlight for your eyes and your stimulation of your brain. So neuroscience also shows the importance of that. But yeah, I love everything you're saying, and that's the thing, it's tweaking little bits of your micro behaviors that can really long term have a massive impact on how you feel and how you show up for your life and yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you also have a newsletter, Glow Mail, and it's garnered significant attention for its insightful content. So what inspired you to start Glow Mail, and how do you curate content and that resonates with your audience for ambitious women seeking personal and professional growth?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's one of the things I just have always been called to do something, and it's kind of based off. Oh gosh, I've lost his the 321 newsletter. James Clear. Do you know his newsletter? It's short and sharp. And I think it's three ideas.
I don't know. I'll definitely check it out though.
Well, it's great. It's great, and I was like, I would love to do something like that for my target audience, and that was. What I have in there is 3 things. It's an idea from me, a quote from whoever is the guru of self-leadership that I find and stumble across these quotes, and then it's a expansive question, so something to stimulate some thought. The point is the email is highly potent in terms of empowerment, and it takes less than 1 minute to read. And I was like, if I was thinking about creating a newsletter, if I was going to read this thing, I'm a busy working mom. Like I made it so that it would be something that would be helpful for me. And so then I think that's why there's been a beautiful uptake, because it doesn't take long to read. And my goal was to make it immune to your email unsubscription rampage, because you think, no, there's value in that and it doesn't take me long, so I'm not going to unsubscribe from that, because we know what inboxes can be like. But I think if I can deliver value, and I've consistently got like an open rate of between 40 and 60%. And that's pretty good for a newsletter. So I think it's hitting the spot.
I love it. Yeah. And I think to your point, any kind of newsletter that we prescribe or subscribe to, for me, because of my, I don't generally like reading like long things unless I'm purposefully sitting down to read something I want to read. So if it's something that I subscribe to, I'm expecting it to be in bullet points and kind of like, what do you want? What are you saying? Get to the point. Yeah. So I think that's a useful point that I think I need to change some of my newsletters as well. But I mean, lastly, your background likely equipped you with, like loads of insights and unique opportunities to, where you also notice what are the challenges facing women in various sectors based on your experience and research. So what are some of the barriers and that hinder women's progress in leadership? And I think that's one question. And second to that, what are some of the tips and tricks that you can share with us to kind of give us a culmination of today's conversation? So what are the barriers and what are some of the tips?
Yeah. So I think, look, there are so many barriers, and I don't even pretend to be able to tackle some of the pieces like unconscious bias, which we're just up against, right? And like yourself included, Kevin, like how do we change mindsets and mass mindsets really, and perceptions of value? It's not a like for like I see the promotion process happening where like for like is promoted, and that is a disadvantage to everybody else who's not a like for like. And so beyond those huge societal patriarchal pieces that we all know about and we're all chipping away at, and what I work on, and that's why I bring it back to the person, is I want women to believe that it's possible. And there can be the dog-headed, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to succeed because like you tell me I can't and I'm going to do it anyway. What if that energy was more like I just exhaled because I feel like that's what we need. We need an exhale and go, you know what? I'm good. I'm happy in my life, I'm healthy, my nervous system is down here, not heightened and reactive, it's down here, and I feel so confident and calm. And so then it actually creates, I do this a lot with my clients as well, but it just creates space. It just eliminates a bunch of noise, and you think, that's what I want. And it comes from such a grounded place of knowing what your value is and believing in yourself that you're going to make an impact where you go and where you lead. And I know women are doing this all over the world, and not everyone needs help to glow up before they do anything like this. And I celebrate women everywhere, but I hate it when a barrier is internal. And if we can eliminate those internal barriers, then when the doors open, or when we bust a hole through the side of the wall and get our way in there, then we're ready to, and we believe that we can, and that we're up for the job. So that's my angle on it. And in terms of the tips and tricks, actually the piece of this whole puzzle is actually a self-worth piece, and everything that we do is dialing up self-worth. And so, for example, even showing up for yourself, like your morning walks, Kevin. Let's just say you continually do that, and that's your habit now. It's just part of your life, and everyone knows it, everyone supports it. It's like, it's your moment to be by yourself and to just be with the morning sun, and that be beautiful. And what that does for your self-worth is that you're putting deposits into the Kevin bucket every single day. It's building trust, that you trust yourself, but it's also saying, I deserve that time. I deserve that moment to myself to go do that. And that is a beautiful deposit into the self-worth bucket. And so that allows boundaries, that allows a bit more spaciousness, because you feel like you've got time to yourself. It actually allows you to show up as the parent you want to, the partner you want to, the leader that you want to. It just creates so much more in your life, capacity for so much more. And so my tip is, as much as we can talk about like actual habits and things that you can build into your life to generate your self-worth, it's a choice to make the change. And that's what it's going to come down to, knowing that I deserve this, and I want this. I want that glow. I'm going to do this tiny bit of work to get there. And I tell you what, you give me like 6 weeks. I just got data through, actually, from one of my clients who I just spoke to. She's 6 weeks into her self-led, and her self-confidence has skyrocketed. Her work-life balance is like a 10 out of 10. Her, and before it was 2s and 3s, and like how she's self-assessing herself. I'm like, that you can't put a price on that. That is her life that she's feeling so abundant in. I'm like, I'm here for that.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, as you were talking through it, I was just thinking back on my day today, and I was going, oh wow, I've just caught myself up into a new commitment for me, because it's lunchtime right now, just after lunch, and I've had one of the best days I've had this whole week. And I'm going, we are creating a new program, and I'm seeing new clients already. I'm doing a recording today, and I've done so much in just the space of like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going, maybe there's something to this, and I should really just pay more attention to it. So I think there is wonderful, and I love that you sort of look at it from a position of self-worth, because people kind of go, oh, that's so cheesy. Yeah, I know, I need to love myself. And you kind of go, yeah, but like take 5 minutes or take 20 minutes and kind of sit with yourself and go, do you really like you? Are you happy? Are you like really okay? And when you get to that kind of positioning, I think that's where people really go, yeah, I'm not so sure about my own self-worth. And like, do I love me? Do I make me matter a little bit more than I did yesterday? And does it even show up in my head? Like, am I even aware of it? Right.
Yeah.
But obviously we can have loads of conversations, and I love this. So Dr. Willo Boniface, tell us, where's the quickest way to get hold of you?
So you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. You can just type in Willo Boniface, and it's not got a W on the end because my mum was a hippie and dad didn't want it to be like the tree. So careful of the spelling. but it's Willo Boniface, and you can also get me at willoboniface.com. And there's some free things on my website if you want to start doing this for yourself. I've got a beautiful 7-day mindset reset type experience, and you can go on and register for that, and you'll hear my voice every day as you do your 20-minute walk. And I've just got the most beautiful feedback from that. It's a real game changer. So if you're looking to dip your toes in and see if what I've talked about is something for you, then you can try that out.
Brilliant, guys. And obviously, they're all in the links and description. Everything that we're going to share today is going to be in the description box below. Yeah, you can probably find out the self-led empowerment program, and for women, it's going to be there as well. So go and check it out. Dr. Willo Boniface, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the insights. I've loved this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure.
Cheers for now.
Bye.